Hi everybody, I'm Ken.
This is Maddie.
And we are here from Gulf Branch Nature Center. You can see it right there behind us. And we are live from the pond. Apologies to anybody who was looking for us and didn't find us right away, but we're all set and ready to go. I'm going to give you a little view of the pond here while we're waiting for some more people to pop in. Oh, we're up to 4 already. There we go. All right, so this is Gulf Branch's pond. And you'll see, hopefully you can see some specks on the water there. You can see some ripples over here. That's all tadpole activity. It's a nice warm day. The tadpoles are really active. They're up in the sunlight there, getting some warmth and feeling pretty comfortable. One of the things that happens with water, as it gets warmer, it loses its ability to hold oxygen. And so being up near the surface also allows the tadpoles to gulp at air if they don't feel like they're getting enough. And again, it's a warm day here. Don't know where you're watching from, but it is definitely a good day for gulping some air at the top there. So we are, I see quite a few people popping in. It's wonderful to see everybody. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get started and scoop out some critters. We've got some tanks here, and we're gonna go take some nets and see what we can find. And just in case we don't find anything, we've already caught some stuff. So you guys are gonna see some neat stuff today.
All right, guys, so we wanted to do a program at the pond today because the pond at Gulf Branch is a really special place. The pond here at Gulf Branch and the pond at Long Branch, our sister nature center, are just two places in the county where wood frogs and spotted salamanders breed in the springtime. So they're the only places in the county where you're gonna find these two creatures. And so, you know, we're pretty excited to have them here at our nature centers. And we want to make sure that they get taken care of. So we want to introduce you to the creatures that live here so you get a closer look of what's happening here at the pond. And in just a minute, we're going to see who we can find. And if you guys have any questions about what we're finding or about the pond, you can go ahead and type those into the comments. So there's two of us here. So one of us will be able to sort of keep an eye on those questions while the other is having some fun in the pond, okay? See if we can get a little closer here. All right. So here comes Ken. He is going to head out into the pond water and see what he can find. We will ask that if you are visiting Gulf Branch to go ahead and stay on the people side of the fence. So you'll see Ken over here. He has crossed the fence and made his way over to the pond. But this is something that really we'd only prefer you to do if a naturalist is here with you. Otherwise, we ask that you stay over here on this side of the fence. Just to keep these creatures safe. Remember, we talked about this is one of only two places in the whole county where we find wood frogs and spotted salamanders, and so we want to protect this area and habitat for them and keep them safe. And you can do your part by staying over here most of the time, unless you happen to be here today with a naturalist like we are with Ken. As you can see, Ken is using what we call a dip net. And he's dipping it into the water and he's kind of seeing what he can catch. So we'll see if we can get a closer look here.
A lot right now.
It's not a ton in the net right now. You can see some leaves, which are pretty good food for all the tiny creatures that live down at the bottom of the pond. Ooh, what do we have there?
This is called a fingernail clam.
Awesome.
They're tiny and they're actually very common. If I remember correctly, they can be a little sticky when they're younger. They can get caught into the feathers of ducks and geese and other aquatic birds. They get stuck to their feathers and they travel with the birds to wherever else they go, and so this is how they get spread. So even though there's nothing feeding into this pond, you know, it's not getting fed from Gulf Branch stream at all. It's a spring fed, and certainly the rain goes in here, but there's no waterway to connect it. That's how these little mollusks are able to get into ponds and lakes which are otherwise isolated. It's pretty much through birds. Which is fascinating. And they're one of the most common mollusks that you'll find east of the Mississippi. And most people probably don't see them because they're so tiny. I'm gonna put this little guy
Cool.
back. So I got something on it.
Yeah. Those little guys are also a sign that our pond here is what we call a vernal pool. So typically you'll find in the later summer months here at Gulf Branch, this pond will dry up, and that's part of what makes it such a good habitat or home for wood frogs and spotted salamanders. They come here to lay their eggs in the springtime, and by summertime, when they've become adults, right, they can leave the water since there won't be any water left. Because, you know, this pond only sees water for part of the year, there aren't any fish that live in it. And as a result, right, that makes it a really great place for those wood frogs and those spotted salamanders. And finding those little clams, like Ken showed us, right, that tells us that this is definitely a vernal pool or vernal pond. Okay, so we're saying that we're having a little trouble hearing everybody, or you guys are having a little trouble hearing us, so we'll go ahead and try to speak a little bit louder just to make sure everybody can hear what we are saying.
I got some good ones here. I can get out without falling over.
So Ken's got some good stuff in the net. We're gonna take a look together.
Got a couple of large tadpoles.
Whoa!
These are probably not, yeah, these are probably bullfrog or green frog. These speckled on, they're definitely not wood frog tadpoles. They're too big. Wood frog tadpoles don't get bigger now. I'm gonna put these guys back in because we've already got some tadpoles we can show you later. What I was excited about finding today was this guy right here. I actually got 3 of these in my net.
Okay,
Oops.
and I'm gonna try to move a little closer to you because folks
Absolutely.
are having a hard time hearing you.
Very good. So this is a dragonfly larva. A dragonfly nymph is the proper term. There you go, buddy. And he is going to grow up to be a fearsome predator of the air. But right now, he's only a fearsome predator of the underwater. They have an extendable mouth part, which is they use for grasping their prey. My favorite life history note about them is they can expel water out of their abdomen in order to scoot away. It's a little jet propulsion, and I think kids really enjoy when I say that they shoot water out of their backside in order to move far away and get away from potential predators.
So cool!
And then I also have this guy here, which I don't think, I'm not going to easily get without dropping the dragonfly. So let me put him in our tank. I'll let Maddie put him in our tank. That's even better, playing right there.
So here we go. We're gonna put our dragonfly larva into our little tank here, and we'll show you the other stuff that's in the tank in a little bit. We'll take a look at what else Ken found in the net.
This guy's really neat. This is and I always seem to get these wrong, get them backwards. It's either a water boatman or a back swimmer, but they trap air against their bodies so that they can swim underwater. We're gonna put him in the tank as well, and they are very neat to see. I'm actually looking, and I don't think I see wings, so this may not be an adult yet. If I remember correctly, the adults can actually fly from a pond if it dries up, or a water source to another place. So we're going to put this one in there as well. I want you to see how it swims. It's really cool. Let me just zip away. Ooh, no.
All right, so there we
He
go.
is hanging upside down. And just from that, I think this is actually a back swimmer.
So you can see him swimming there under the surface of the water, and again, right now he is upside down, which is pretty amazing. Okay. We're just gonna keep the camera on him for a little bit to see if he scoots around a little more, since it is so cool to watch. There he goes. He's scooting away from us. Okay. While Ken goes back out into the pond and gets another net full of creatures, we're gonna take a look at this little guy here. Ken, is that all right with you if we take a look at this guy? So if you look in the corner here, we have what we call a froglet, right? We've got a wood frog tadpole who is in the process of becoming a frog, right? So he's still got his little tail, but he's grown his back legs and also his front legs. And soon that tail will disappear and he'll be ready to come out on land. So wood frogs once they're adults, will journey out of vernal pools or vernal ponds like this one and spend their time in wet areas in the forest. In the wintertime, they'll hibernate under leaf litter and just kind of hang out where it's a little bit warmer. And then in the springtime, they'll return back to the same vernal pond or vernal pool where they were born to mate and lay eggs and make babies of their own. So he's just starting his little wood frog journey here. You can see, again, he's still got his tadpole tail. Give it a little touch. But he also has his front and back legs, so we know he's making good progress on his journey to becoming an adult wood frog. Okay, let's take a look. We're also going to take a look. Yeah.
Could I borrow the camera from you?
Sure. Yeah. So Ken's got something cool down here, so we'll pass the camera his way.
Sorry for the ride, everybody. Okay. First, on this log, I'll make sure you can see it on this log. There is another froglet hanging out.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the mix-up. We're having some technology troubles here down at the pond. Hopefully we'll have some of you tune in. Right now I'm not seeing any viewers, so if you're still on that other live feed video, that's frozen because we had some technology issues where one of our phones overheated. So tune in here and we'll continue our live event at the pond. I'm gonna switch the camera around here so that we can take a look. I know we had some comments before wanting to know how big those little froglets were. They are about 2 inches long, and then we had some other questions about the salamanders that live here at the pond. And here at the pond at Gulf Branch, we have spotted salamanders. And again, this pond is just one of 2 places where spotted salamanders are found in Arlington County. So it's a pretty special place. Awesome, Marianne. Marianne says we're back, so that's great. I'm gonna pass the phone off to Ken.
I'm not
so
going to talk as long in the sun so
continue
we don't overheat.
show you what's down here.
All right. So I learned something new today, and that is that an iPhone can overheat. I've felt it get warm, but I've never had it shut down from overheating. So what I was trying to show earlier is this guy right here. This is a 6-spotted fishing spider. I'm sure it's in focus there. And it is sitting with its back legs up on vegetation, but it's got its front legs on the surface of the water, and it is feeling for any kind of disturbance where it is being told it can run out and grab food. Holy cow. I'm going to move a little to the right, and you'll see there's a much bigger one right here. Move out of the sun's direction there. And again, these guys are fishing spiders. They can hide on in and among the vegetation. Wow, we've got an infestation, because now if I go to the left, there's our first little guy. Here's another big one, and this one is sitting right out on the surface of the pond. So these guys, again, they're really good hunters. They will eat small fish, small tadpoles. They'll eat all kinds of invertebrates. They can run across the surface of the water just like the water striders can, except obviously these are spiders. And to me, they're just fascinating. They're one of my favorite spiders. And I don't have a lot of favorite spiders, but that is one of them. All right, and I'm going to give the phone back to Maddie now before I drop it or overheat it in the sun.
All right. So for folks who are just tuning in, if you missed the beginning of our program here, we just want to let you know we are at the pond at Gulf Branch Nature Center. And this pond is a pretty special place. In Arlington County, it's just one of 2 places where spotted salamanders and wood frogs breed in the springtime, because this is a temporary pond. So in the late winter and early spring, it fills with water, and then usually by the late summer, it's dried up, which makes it really ideal habitat for our amphibians like salamanders and frogs, right? Those fish that would normally love to eat salamander and frog eggs aren't present in this pond because it is temporary, right? By the end of the summer, it will be dry. It looks like Ken found something cool in his net.
The one I was showing them?
Yeah.
Has an egg sac.
Whoa! Okay, so we're going to take a look here. See if I can move to this side so I don't cast a shadow into the bin. And we're taking a look at the fishing spider that Ken was showing you earlier. But if you look underneath the main part of her body, she's actually holding her own egg sac. Okay, so it's a little tough to see underneath her from where we are. Let's see if we can, whoop, there she goes. She moved a little bit into the shadow. We'll spin her around this way. Just trying to get a good view here. Our 5- and 7-year-olds were wondering if the spiders eat the water striders, Ken.
I would imagine they do if they
Yeah.
can catch them. Absolutely.
They're also going to eat little fish, which obviously are not here in this pond, but they might even eat some of the tinier tadpoles. I've seen fishing spiders eat little minnows before. Again, we don't have fish in this pond. That's what makes it such a good place for frogs and salamanders, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
this guy is probably a pretty big predator in this pond because, right, we don't have those fish. So
she's beautiful. I'm super excited about this. A lot of our biggest spiders you're going to find here in Arlington are the fishing spiders. We have dark fishing spiders, which you can find pretty easily in our cabin. You can find in and around the owl enclosure, and sometimes along the fence, and definitely in the trees here. These 6-spotted fishing spiders are usually tend to be more near aquatic areas, and that's where they like to hunt. What's fantastic is a lot of times people will say that these are wolf spiders. So they see a big spider and they just think wolf spider. These are actually, like I said, they're fishing spiders. They're part of the nursery web spider group. And so wolf spiders will carry an egg sac as well, but they carry it attached to their spinnerets. Whereas the fishing spiders carry it with their front appendages. And so that's what this one is doing right here. And I'm wondering now, because this is the 2 big ones. Oh, fantastic.
we have some dragonflies mating here.
Oh, let's go get a look
So
at
we're
that.
going to see if we can get a closer look here. They might fly away, so we're just going to try to move really slow here. They've landed on some of this horsetail. There we go. You can see. Whoop! There they go. Violet from New York is asking, where do the salamanders and wood frogs go when the water disappears at the end of the summer? That's a great question. By the end of the summer, most of these guys will have become adults, and so they can hop away or crawl away as adult frogs and salamanders. And then Crystal wants to know, I have a stream behind my house. Could they live there or mostly in ponds? And Crystal, we're not sure if you're talking about the fishing spiders or the wood frogs. Wood frogs like vernal pools like this one. Fishing spiders you can find in a lot of different aquatic environments. So we'll take another look. We missed our dragonflies. They flew away on us. So we'll go back to our fishing spider here. Take another look at her. It's hard to see her. She's kind of in the shadows now. Might have to take a look at another creature for a little while. Mary Sanders wants to know, how fast, or does the spider move fast? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, relatively speaking, yes. She's pretty quick.
Yeah, she's pretty fast. Ken, I know wolf spiders carry their young on their backs after they hatch out of the egg sac. Will fishing spiders do the same?
That I don't know. I don't know if the nursery web
Yeah.
spiders as a group or fishing spiders do that.
Yeah, super cool. We'll have to look it up.
Cool.
So we've got some park visitors here today. Say hi, guys. You're on Facebook Live. So we're going to take a look
Fishing
at
spider?
what else is happening here. Ooh, we've got a dragonfly down below. Here we go. We'll tune in back here and just see what our visitors
That
are
has a
doing.
bunch of baby spiders in it. There might be 100 or more in there. Right now they're just eggs, but she holds onto that egg sac until they're ready to hatch, and so that way she takes care of them. So for a spider, she's a pretty good mommy.
Pretty cool. All right, so we'd love to see you before this phone overheats too, which hopefully isn't happening yet, but just in case, we want to show you another cool thing we pulled out of the pond earlier today before you guys tuned in on Facebook. We've got in this little bucket here the larva of a salamander, and that's going to look a little bit different. Let's see if I can get a good view here. A little different from our tadpoles, right? It's got a tail like a tadpole, and it's kind of brownish like a tadpole, but it has these external gills near its head that almost look like silly ears. There we go. That's a pretty good shot. You can see those external gills sticking straight up. it's starting to get that long sort of elongated body that a salamander has. But again, its gills right now are on the outside of its body, so it can get oxygen from the water. And as it becomes an adult, right, eventually those gills will move to the interior of its body so that it can get oxygen, right, from, right, not the water. So here we go. We want to know, how long do salamanders live? And that's a great question that I don't know the answers to. Ken, do you know how long salamanders typically live?
That is a great question, and I'm not sure the answer either, how long these guys live.
Yeah.
They're big salamanders. They're the mole salamanders, so they live under logs and rocks, and the only time you see them in the water is when they come to mate in the early spring. So I would guess maybe 5-10 years would be probably typical, because they do come back annually. So, but I can't imagine they live
for a long time. Yeah, that would be my guess. That would be my guess as well. Yeah, they're small. They're big for salamanders, but still relatively small creatures compared to a lot of other things on this planet. So probably not too long. Violet wants to know, does the salamander stay with her babies? And the answer is no, right? Both frogs and salamanders are born knowing all the things they need to know to be grown-up frogs and grown-up salamanders. So they don't need the help of their parents, right? Once the adult wood frogs and adult salamanders are done breeding in the springtime, they actually leave our vernal pool or our vernal pond here and head back into the forest. Again, like Ken was saying, our spotted salamanders are mole salamanders. That means that they really actually spend most of their lives under the ground, under leaves, under logs, and they're just here in the springtime to mate and lay eggs. And then, yeah, after that, right, they're done. We see someone says here, it looks like we've got a link to salamanders living up to 20 years. Again, I would imagine it depends on the species of salamander and also whether or not that salamander lives in captivity, where it's not going to find dangers like predators, or if it's a wild salamander that probably has a much shorter lifespan. So really depends on where that salamander lives and the species of salamander. So Ken's back out in the pond, kind of in the sunshine here. See if we can get a little closer, see what he finds. We're walking through right now, everybody, a beautiful plant called jewelweed. So if you look here, we've got, this is lizard's tail with this pointy end to its leaf, but these leaves with these sort of rounded edges are called jewelweed, and they're a plant that grows in wet areas, and they're really good if you have a poison ivy rash. You can kind of grind up these jewelweed leaves and rub them on your poison ivy rash, and supposedly it's supposed to help stop the itch. I've never tried it, but they often grow together. So there is some poison ivy here along with the lizard's tail and the jewelweed. Find anything good over there?
Kind of the same stuff. Take another pass here.
What about all those leaves you found? They good for anything?
They stink. If this was smell-o-vision or live smell on that Facebook, it'd be great. You tell that there's a lot of bacteria, there's a lot of chemical processes going on, like decomposition, which can actually sometimes take up oxygen from a pond like this. So a small pond like this can lose oxygen really quickly when you got if it gets really warm and you got a lot of that going on. But you can see there's a ton of tadpoles and there's a lot of activity on here, so it's doing all right so far.
It's going to be hard to see for you guys, but there are tadpoles swimming under the surface of the water. A lot of that movement that you see are just tons and tons of wood frog tadpoles swimming around in the water there.
Don't normally operate on this part of the pond, like in it, and so I don't know where to put my foot. We get a lot of damselfly nymphs in here too, and I don't know that we have, I don't know if this is the right time for them yet. There's a lot of muck, lots of tadpoles who are not happy with me. Find anything different.
I see folks saying hello. Hello for folks who are just joining us. Thanks for being with us today. We've got some folks who happen to be walking by in person. Hey guys behind me. And also some folks who are just joining us now on Facebook Live. So,
hey, if you're watching while I'm
All right, everybody, we're having some trouble on this phone as well, where it's getting a little too hot because it is so hot here today. So Ken wanted to let you know, if you didn't hear that, we love to hear where folks are tuning in from. So if you're from here in Arlington, or maybe you're from further away,
To the right, so you're more in the shade, yeah.
we would love to hear that. And if at any point the live feed cuts out again, it's just because our device overheated, so we apologize for that. So hopefully we'll be able to make it through for at least a few more minutes. Violet wants to know, does the jewelweed die when the water is gone? Violet, that's a great question. Jewelweed does prefer to grow in damp areas. So if it gets really dry here, that jewelweed will disappear. But for now, it's looking pretty good, right? Later in the year, it'll have a really beautiful orange or yellowish flower that hangs kind of underneath. And April tuned in earlier. She said she loves touch-me-nots, which jewelweed is called sometimes. You touch them and they sort of pop or snap, so it's pretty amazing.
All right, so hopefully you guys can see this. But I want to show this one. This is a frog, but this is a wood frog. If you can see, if I can get them to turn a little bit, you can see the black mask. You're starting to see that black mask right through the eyes, the big black stripe. And that's how I know. Plus, it's smaller.
Yeah.
When bullfrogs or green frogs leave, a lot of times they've taken a year or two, maybe 3 if you're further up north, to get through metamorphosis. So 1, 2, or 3 years, whereas wood frogs, it's only a month or so. A couple months rather. They hatch, they grow as quick as they can, and then they get out of the pond. So they're often very tiny. American toads do the same thing. Speaking of which, we've shown you wood frog and bullfrog or green frog tadpole, bullfrog. And then we've shown you the larval salamander, the spotted salamander. We've also had American toads lay eggs in here, and there was a fantastic chorus of tree frogs in here about a year ago, although never actually found any of the no, I apologize. I think I did find a tadpole. I don't think I found an egg mass, but I think I did find a tadpole once. So we've had 5 or 6 different species of amphibians lay eggs in here, and it's fantastic because there's no fish. Our problem has been, in the last 2 years, it's been so wet that the pond actually hasn't dried up. And if that keeps up, there's a better and better chance that eventually we might end up with some fish in here. We don't get a lot of birds in here that are aquatic birds. We do have, every now and then we'll have a pair of mallards that show up, and they like to use the pond, and they'll move between the pond and the stream, and that is a chance for an introduction of new species and new seeds. I saw some, if I see it, I'll pull it out again, what I think is called coontail, which is a type of aquatic plant. And I don't think I've ever seen that in the pond before, and I just noticed that earlier today. So I'm going to try to scoop that up. If everybody got a good look at that. Oh, and then here's another big dragonfly nest. Yeah, look at that guy.
Yeah. So I misspoke earlier, guys. When we were looking at the larger tadpole in the tank, we were looking at a bullfrog tadpole. That little guy that we just saw was the wood frog, like Ken was saying. We had some questions come through. It looks like folks are wondering if there are fish in the pond. No, there's no fish. That's what makes this such a good habitat or environment for spotted salamanders and for wood frogs. They can lay their eggs here without having to worry about fish eating those eggs. And then it looks like we also had some questions about what happens to the tadpole's tail. How does it fall off? My understanding is that it doesn't really fall off per se. Just as the tadpole grows into a frog, it sort of gets absorbed into the tadpole's growing body. Ken, do you know differently?
Yeah, it gets reabsorbed. Yep, exactly. And eventually they lose that tail, but it doesn't fall off. And so I think they're able to use some of that tissue and energy that's stored in there as they grow.
Yeah.
Remember, as they're going from being a frog to a frog, as their head starts to change from looking more like a tadpole to looking more like a frog, their everything in their mouth is changing because they're going from being an herbivore or eating plants. Sometimes they'll eat each other if they're
really hungry.
To being a predator, and so their mouth goes through a big change. I know we've had people who have raised tadpoles to adulthood, and I tell them as soon as it starts looking like a frog, don't wait for the tail to disappear. As soon as it starts looking like a frog, it needs a different meal, and it's time to return it unless you know how to feed it. And most of us don't, and there's no harm in that, but you want to make sure you take care of that frog. More questions? No?
Again, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We're here at the pond at Gulf Branch Nature Center. Again, we're having some trouble with our devices overheating today since it is so warm out. So we're trying to stay in the shade, but if at any point the feed just stops or cuts out for you, it's because our device overheated. So we're doing our best to hang on here for a few more minutes to show you what else we can find. We've had folks from New York, New Hampshire, other places in Virginia tune in to see what we have going on today. So thank you guys. You know, we have someone watching from New York. So if you're watching from far away, you guys probably also have vernal pools or vernal ponds where you are. They're not specific to Virginia, right? We do have vernal pools all up and down the East Coast. But all over they are sort of, we like to think of them as kind of an endangered habitat, right? We don't have as many as we used to. So they usually are pretty special places where you can find species that you wouldn't find other places. So we like to protect them when we can. Ken's got something cool. Let's check it out.
So this is an exuviae, or a shed exoskeleton from one of our fishing spiders. So if that looks too big to you, because I know not everybody's a spider fan, it's bigger now. Because when they do this, they get rid of their exoskeleton so they can grow bigger, because the exoskeleton doesn't grow with the body like our skeleton, which is an endoskeleton. Our endoskeleton grows with us. Their skeleton doesn't. So in order to grow bigger, they have to molt and get rid of the old exoskeleton and let the new one that they've grown underneath expand. So once they pop out of this, they kind of look like a ghost. They're very light color. The pigments haven't settled in yet. And so a lot of times they got to find somewhere to hide. But I just found this underneath one of the leaves. I haven't been in this pond enough, and I'm super excited at stuff I'm seeing because I'm usually on the other side of the fence. So there's some great stuff here.
Phyllis, we see that you have a comment here that you asked a question. I apologize if we missed it. We got a few questions all at once. If you want to go ahead and ask that question again, we're happy to answer it for you if we can. And I know you guys seemed like you had some questions over here. You want to wave? Did you have any questions? No?
Borrow this for a second. Found another spider. There's lots of, this is a long-jawed orb weaver. Let me see if I can find him or her. Our phones are really getting warm, huh? Here we go. It's avoiding me at all costs. There we go. On the edge of this leaf.
Oh, I hear a frog. Did you hear that green frog?
I did. I can't get the spider to come out on the other side of the leaf.
There it goes.
Oh, there he goes. There's a long, oh, it's so quick. There's a long-jawed orb weaver. They have ridiculous looking jaws. He's not staying with me. Does the bullfrog do the same thing as a normal frog?
What do you mean by
Violet from New York. I'm not sure about that question. If we can get a clarification.
Yeah, you guys can clarify what specifically you're asking about. If the bullfrog, do you mean if the bullfrog goes from tadpole to froglet to frog? Yes, it does. Or if you mean, does the bullfrog come to the vernal pool, right, just in the springtime and then leave, right? It's using the vernal pool for breeding. It definitely is, but bullfrogs will use a variety of habitats, so they don't need vernal pools the same way spotted salamanders and wood frogs need vernal pools for that part of their life.
Yes. And I want to add to that because that's a really good point. The bullfrogs and green frogs do need to take more than one season to grow. So we wouldn't have those tadpoles in here except it's been a couple of wet years and the pond hasn't actually dried up. If the pond had dried up, the bullfrogs, the green frogs, tadpoles would have died because there'd be no water. And then we wouldn't have them in here. But they found it. They've been successfully breeding and laying eggs and having offspring grow because the water hasn't disappeared during the summer like it normally has in the past 2 summers. And again, I worked in Cleveland for a while. Up there, it might take 3 years before the bullfrogs, a full season before the bullfrogs were ready to metamorphose. And then the habitat point. I have often found green frog eggs in streams. So somebody asked if they could find these frogs in the stream. Not the wood frogs, they're going to use the vernal pool. But the green frogs, I don't know about bullfrogs, but certainly green frogs, you can definitely find. I've found them in streams, like in a shallow pool where the water's not fast. I found the sheets of their eggs.
and other wetland areas, right? If we have sort of slow moving rivers and streams with wetland areas, green frogs and bullfrogs will use those places, but wood frogs will not. Phyllis and Violet, I hope that answers your question. I see here you said, how to use the bullfrog differ from the bullfrog. Not sure what you meant there, but I hope we answered your question to talk about some of those differences between bullfrogs and the other frogs we find in vernal pools. Ken's got a cool plant, looks like.
The big thing with bullfrogs literally is they're so big, it takes them longer to develop. So this is, oh, that wasn't steady. I believe this is called coontail, one of the common names. And I don't know that I've seen that in the pond before, and I think we have it because, again, like I said, ducks have been visiting, but I think we have it because it hasn't gotten dry in here in a couple years.
Yeah, so this is a plant that grows in the water, right? You'll see it doesn't really have roots. It's just kind of hanging out in the water, pretty indicative of a wetland area. And again, right, this is our vernal pool. Typically it dries up in the summertime. For the last few years, Ken is saying it hasn't, and that's the reason that we're finding some of these species like coontail and like the bullfrog tadpoles, right? Hopefully eventually it dries up, otherwise, like Ken said earlier, we might end up with fish in this little pond, and that wouldn't be great for our wood frogs and our spotted salamanders because they need pools or ponds where you aren't finding.
On the corner, on the outside corner.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, I have never seen this many fishing spiders. Again, I got to get in this pond more often.
It's kind of greenish. There she is, right here. Here, compared to my finger. How? Woo! She jumped. I scared her. You guys found a spider over there?
Right there on the fence.
Ooh, yeah, we've got a really tiny spider over here. I don't know what kind it is. Ken is much more experienced with his insects and his arachnids than I am, so he'd have to come take a look at it to tell us what it is, but it's really well camouflaged against the fence here. Again, if you're just tuning in, right, we're here on this side of the fence at the pond here at Gulf Branch, but if you visit, we're going to ask that you stand over here on this side of the fence because this is such a special habitat. We really do want to protect it. If you're here with a naturalist and there's a naturalist on this side of the fence where we are today, that's one thing, but if you're just here, we ask that you stay on the people side of the fence and save this side of the fence for our wood frogs and our spotted salamanders. How do the fish appear in the ponds that do not dry up? So it's hard to see from where you are, but our pond is fairly close to Gulf Branch stream. So if this pond, right, were to stay wet like this forever, eventually there might be a sort of more permanent connection between it and Gulf Branch that a fish could swim up. That would be how a fish would make it into this pond or this pool. It's 2:40 now.
Wow.
So
I feel like I'm just kind of finding
a lot of the same stuff. So maybe.
Yeah, but I do want to say one thing. A lot of these plants that you see here, if I'm hope I'm pointing to the correct ones, are lizard tail, and they have a beautiful long whitish set of flowers.
Here.
And they'll be in bloom sometime in the next month, I believe, if I got that timing right.
Yeah.
And I think the pond is just. I like the pond every time of year. But I think it's really pretty when the lizard tail is in bloom because it really adds a nice touch to it.
All right, so we want to know, how smooth is the salamander? Like
smooth.
Most amphibians, yeah, very, very smooth. How do you get garden spiders? Violet wants to know. Violet, we don't know if you mean how do you get them in your garden or how do you catch them? We're not sure.
They will come.
Yeah, if you have a garden, they will come.
Yeah.
There'll be insects there that they want to eat. All right, I think maybe one last thing we can show everybody, if we put a jewelweed leaf in the water, show people how it sort of sparkles and shines, and then just to make sure, right, our phone doesn't overheat here, we'll probably end it after that. So Frank says, I'm a big fan of Ken. Hopefully he'll give a shout out on my birthday.
Happy birthday, Frankie. That's my nephew. That's
he
awesome.
says, how much will fish affect the habitat if they were to enter the pond?
It's another organism in the pond, so they're going to certainly can affect the chemistry of the water. You know, there's waste products, and then there's obviously the things they eat. So putting fish in can really drastically affect, depending on the type of fish and what they eat. If you had fish eating plants, you would see a change in the plants. So if you have fish that are eating small invertebrates or small critters, then you're going to see a change in the animal component of the ecosystem. So
Right.
it really just depends on what that is.
Yeah.
But the bigger the fish, the bigger the things they're going to eat, and obviously the more likely they're going to snack on our amphibians.
Yeah, and if there were fish here, there probably wouldn't be wood frogs or spotted salamanders anymore because it wouldn't be a great place for them to breed, right? Because the fish would just eat those eggs right up.
Exactly. Yeah. A fishless
right.
pond is the best nursery possible.
Yeah,
It's like having a daycare center without a tiger in it.
yeah,
There's
perfect.
nothing to eat the little baby amphibians.
right.
So I'm putting this just on the water?
Yeah,
Is that-
let's just see it sparkle and shine. So that jewelweed plant that we showed you earlier, if you put the leaf in the water and sort of get it wet, Ken,
Okay.
sometimes you can see it sparkle in
Whoa.
the sun. Yeah.
I've never done that before. That's cool.
Let's see if we can get a little closer so you can see. And hold up the underside maybe. You can see the water really sparkles and shines on that jewelweed leaf, makes the leaf look silver in the water. See if we can get it.
Oh,
There
I
we
see.
go. If we hold the leaf under the water, you can see it sort of silvery. It's a little tough to see on the camera, which is disappointing, but yeah, there we go. That's one surefire way to know that you've got jewelweed, is if you get it wet, it sparkles and shines silver like that.
Is that
That's
how
a
it got
fun
its
way to
name,
end.
Maddie?
That's a great question, and I don't know.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the
Could be.
spot.
No, it's okay.
I didn't know. That's
That's
really
a
neat.
really good guess.
Very cool.
Phyllis wants to know, invertebrates are animals without backbones. Yes,
That is
they are.
correct.
That's correct. All right, everybody. So we're going to call it a day before we have more overheating issues with our technology. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, when the Nature Center is open again, we'll be able to see some of you in person. And for those of you who are tuning in from far away, hopefully you'll come visit us here in Virginia at some point in Arlington. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll have more programs in the future. So keep a lookout on our Facebook page.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.